Welcome, folks, to another PyMCon interview. Today I have Hyosub. Hyosub is a contributor who's going to be talking about the Bayesian Statistics Toolbox. It's a really smooth and easy way to get into Bayesian statistics because it implements a lot of these common tests you've heard about in middle school, well, maybe not middle school, but high school or college, like the t-test and whatnot, and gives you a really, really clean interface to that. But before I give too much away, I want to pass it over to Hyosub. Do you mind giving the folks who are watching an introduction about yourself?
Sure. So first of all, thanks for inviting me, Robin. So my name's Hyosub Kim. Currently, I'm an assistant professor at the University of Delaware. I'm in the departments of physical therapy as well as psychological and brain sciences. So my main interest is in how we acquire motor skills and how we adapt them to new environments.
So a skill that you're good at now is Bayesian statistics, and I want to narrow in on that. How did you pick up this skill? What interested you in Bayesian statistics? And from what you just explained, from your work in cognitive neuroscience, what led you to this path?
Yeah, so I was just thinking about this earlier. It's been kind of a long and circuitous path. So I would say the first time that I really became introduced to Bayesian statistics was as a postdoc. I was at Berkeley and I had some data. We were looking at learning functions essentially in response to different perturbations. And it really looked like, visually to the eye, it was very clear that these learning functions from these different conditions were overlapping. And so from a frequentist viewpoint, what am I doing? I'm running some sort of t-test or let's say an ANOVA, and then I'm seeing that the p-value is higher than 0.05. So we would say that's not statistically significant. But what I was really interested in was, are these learning functions functionally equivalent? And so I think at that time, my advisor told me about these things called Bayes factors. And so that was really my first introduction to Bayesian statistics. I had no idea what a Bayes factor was at the time, but that kind of set me on this path where I started looking up resources, checking out textbooks that people online recommended. So the very first one that I encountered was John Krushke's doing Bayesian data analysis. And so I think once I started reading and finding out about Bayesian statistics and really kind of understanding the difference in philosophy between Bayesian and classical or frequentist statistics, it really appealed to me because the thing about Bayesian statistics is that it feels like a very unified framework for understanding how to do statistical inference. So for my scientific mind, that felt a lot better than what I was used to in the frequentist mold, which is like based on the sort of data you have, you choose this kind of test, you check out if these assumptions are met, et cetera, et cetera. So this is kind of a long-winded way of saying, like, it took me years before I actually took what I really enjoyed and understood about Bayesian statistics and actually did something about it, meaning actually using it in my own work. And part of the reason that it took me so long was that the obstacles that I was encountering was, at first I was trying to do it in R, even though I was programming primarily in MATLAB and somewhat in Python. And then coding up models from scratch each time that I wanted to run something that I thought was fairly straightforward or simple. And so that's really what led me to finally deciding, okay, I want to really learn Bayesian statistics systematically. And I want to build up some software so that I can run these sorts of tests repeatedly and make it honestly easier for myself, first of all. And then also now that I'm running a lab, I wanted to be able to offer something to my trainees and future trainees where they wouldn't have to go through this long circuitous path that I did, and that they would have some built-in tools for applying Bayesian statistics.
Got it. And so, given this is PyMCon, my next question to follow up on that is, how did you get introduced to PyMC and decide this was the tool you wanted to use? You'd mentioned you'd used other languages and other tools, but I'm just curious how you ended up on the, let's say, the PyMC stack.
So Like I mentioned, I was using MATLAB almost exclusively as a PhD and postdoc. And then I became really interested in the idea of open source software as well as open science. And so that motivated me to learn Python. I felt like Python sounded like the best language for me to learn and to use because it is so flexible. And there just seemed to be this really excited and enthusiastic scientific community that was using Python. So it all started with my deciding, okay, I'm going to switch from MATLAB to Python. And then at the same time, again, like I guess I'm big on textbooks, but I was reading through Richard McElreath's Statistical Rethinking. And there was a great repo that some people put up where they went through all the code in the book and translated it from R to Python. I think that was my very first introduction to PyMC. And then when I started getting more serious about, okay, I want to develop my own software that I can use, then I started really digging into the resources that the PyMC developers had put out.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you found those useful. So then the last question I have is, a lot of the audience members of PyMCon, they'll be just starting out with Bayesian statistics. This may be one of the first videos or talks that they're watching about it. What advice would you have for these folks?
I can really sympathize with wanting to learn Bayesian statistics and kind of feeling like, okay, where do I begin? Because I was there. And I would say the things that helped me out the most were going through the Krushke and McElrath textbooks. In my opinion, those are great places to start. And then find a problem where you can actually apply what you're learning as far as Bayesian statistics is concerned. Because I think once you personalize the problem and once you have your own application for using Bayesian statistics, I think that's when it becomes really concrete and it becomes something where you can see personally in your own work the benefits of taking a Bayesian approach. Persistence is also key because I always feel like I'm just scratching the surface in terms of Bayesian statistics. It's part of the reason why I love Bayesian statistics because it is such a deep topic, but it's also what makes it challenging. But I think you'll find the more you get involved and the more you interact with the community, my limited interactions with you all, with the PyMC developers, has already been really fruitful for me. So I would say just get started, find a problem, and stick to it.
Thank you for sharing that advice. And a big part of the PyMC magic is the community. So you yourself are part of this community now. For folks watching, I want to mention again, Hyosub has put together this package called Bayesian Statistics Toolbox. If you're learning Bayesian statistics, it's another entry point and a way to get started, especially if you're familiar with the frequentist style of statistics testing. He was giving a talk on this as well. This is just the interview. So all the details for the talk are on pymccon.com. If you're watching this now, his talk is in the future, but even if you're in the future, his talk will be recorded and is on our YouTube channel as well. So be sure to go check out that package and his talk to get even more information and learn more from Hyosub. And Hyosub, I wanted to say to you, thank you so much again for putting together the talk, this package, and taking the time out today to share your knowledge with the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Robin.